Okay, tonight's lecture will be the last lecture before Pesach, and Bezat Hashem will be coming back after Pesach 3 weeks from now. The name of the topic is who's the master, who's the true master, and who's the slave. As you can guess, it has a little bit to do with Pesach. But it is a very important topic because it would be good if we can be masters and not slaves. It's always good to be the boss. It's always good to be in control. There's a very interesting pasuk in Eicha. Megillat Eicha is what we read on Tisha B'Av. The prophet says, Tov lagever sheyisa ol b'ne'orav. It is a good idea for one to carry a burden when he's young. What that means is not only when he's young, but beginning in his early age. It would be a good idea for one to accustom himself to carry a burden. What burden are we talking about? Talking about the burden of responsibility, of discipline, and of course of mitzvot. It is something that is good for one to start early on. What's the advantage of starting early on? Not only to occupy oneself with positive activities. As we all know, it's always good and healthy to be busy. And even though when one is young and he's not married and he doesn't have the additional burdens of life, it's not a good idea to just sit around and do nothing. So it's always good and healthy to be occupied. Judaism does not believe in the concept of retirement that the non-Jewish world believes, that after you leave work, all you do is go around the world. I mean, how many times can you do that? And you play golf, and you just enjoy yourself, and there's no more work. We know that the real work, which is the service of Hashem, continues on until the last day of our life. There's no retirement from that. We always have that responsibility. I don't want to use the word burden with that because a burden seems to imply something heavy and difficult. But it is a responsibility. It is something that we're supposed to carry with us for the rest of our life. And it is a good idea for a young man, the gever shisa'ol, for him to begin with this early on, so that he should also get used to it, so that it should not be too difficult for him later on. That is the idea of starting off early on. In beginning to carry a burden, in beginning to assume this responsibility, a young man or young woman is also being trained to serve, to give to others, to work, and not to grow accustomed to a life where he will be pampered and spoiled, as some people have been because their parents or their environment has accustomed them to live the easy life. So there are various ideas here that are implied in assuming responsibilities early on. And ultimately, if we're talking to the Jew, we're including the responsibility, of course, of mitzvot, of having a good routine, a good discipline early on in order for one to be able to continue to do so for the rest of his life. One could possibly also say that therefore Galut Mitzrayim, the exile in Egypt, was in order to prepare us too, in our youth, in the youth of the Jewish nation, early on, to be able to later on carry the Torah and the mitzvot, which we received upon leaving Egypt, right, a couple weeks later. So Egypt, or the servitude in Egypt, was something healthy. Hashem loves his children. He does not just take him through bondage because he thinks bondage is such a good idea, because he thinks that they should be slaves, or because of some punishment that they deserve. This is a time in our history where we had no mitzvot yet. What punishment is there? Unless, of course, you include Mechirat Yosef, obviously the selling of Yosef. HaKadosh Baruch Hu cannot allow for this sinat chinam, this baseless hatred to exist. Am Yisrael needs to be united in order to accomplish their mission. They can't break up. They can't split. We cannot tolerate mahloket, dissension, right, and arguments and so forth. So obviously there are various reasons for why we had Galut Mitzrayim. But the essence of the galut in Egypt was really to prepare us to serve Hashem, not to be a servant of Paro, not to be just bricklayers, but to serve Hashem in performing the mitzvot. Okay, if it's such a good idea to begin life performing, serving, working, assuming responsibilities, why do people have such a hard time with that? Not everybody succeeds in being responsible. Not everybody has an interest in working hard. Not everyone can easily commit himself to do something. Where is the difficulty? What's the problem here if it's so important? Well, we must remind ourselves that Teva Ha'adam, the nature of the human being, is not to want to give to others. It's not to commit to others. It is to want something for himself. He wants to be pampered. Man, the human being, wants something for himself. Does not necessarily want something for someone else. Now, when I say that, who am I really talking about? I said the human being, but who am I talking about? I'm not talking about the neshama. I'm talking about the guf. I'm talking about the physical body. The nature of the physical body is to want for itself. That's a given. There's nothing we can do about that. It's the neshama who has that ability to be unselfish. It's the neshama. Only the neshama that has the soul, that has the ability to give to others, to sacrifice to others, to really love others. Okay, that's coming from the neshama, not from the guf. And the same is true in friendship and in marriage. The ability to give to someone else does not come natural from the guf. It has to come from the neshama. It is something spiritual in nature. If we just allowed nature to take its course, the raw nature of the human being, he would want everything for himself. He would be only interested in himself. To give to others, to love others, to commit to others, that is already something altruistic. That is already something that comes from the neshama. And it therefore does not come as a surprise that in many marriages or relationships, one gives more than the other. One is not capable of giving. Or is he capable? Or is he not capable? Maybe he doesn't want to. Most people have some degree of capability. They just don't want to. There's something holding them back. What do you think it is that is holding them back? It's the interest that they have more in themselves. They come first and not the other individual. I mean, we can get into more details as to how this really appears in life, but there's no need for that. I think most of you will understand the idea here that it's either me or him. It's quite black and white. That is if we're talking about in the realm of the physical world where the guf, the physical body, is involved. The physical body has needs. And therefore, if it is not directed, it will think first and foremost of itself. That's why it should not come as a surprise to some people, and I've said this in other lectures too, that one individual is capable to demonstrate complete selflessness in doing something for other, where that individual is everything to him, even if it involves tremendous sacrifice, and the other one is not willing. Not that they're not so capable, they're not willing to do so. And people in life become disappointed. Marriages break up when one does more than the other. It's not fair. It's not right. But it's not easy either to expect and to demand. But in reality, that's the way it should be if the neshama is in charge. If the neshama is in control, the neshama wants to give. The neshama has the ability to be unselfish. It's not bound by the physical limitations of the body. It does not have physical needs. It is spiritual. It's a chelek eloka mima'al, and it's a part of Hashem. And Hashem gives. Hashem is loving. Hashem doesn't necessarily need anything for himself. So this neshama, which is a part of God, has the same nature. To want to give, to want to do, to want to serve in an unselfish way. So what's the limitation here? We said the limitation was the physical body, but what is it in the physical body that is limiting one to perform unselfishly? It's the ta'avot. It's the physical desires. There's a lot of kinds of desires that people have. In life, there's even something called conflict of interests, which is not necessarily a desire, but it's a conflict of interest, which is the same idea. I'm nogea, I'm biased. This is a brother, this is a sister, this is a relative. In other words, I have some interest, some connection, and it's hard to be objective, right, when you have a conflict of interests. But however you want to call it, it's all in the physical world. And this, therefore, presents a tremendous limitation in forming a true bond between two individuals, or in forming a true bond between one and Hashem, between one and God. The ta'avot, the world of the desires. The yetzirah, if you prefer that word, the evil inclination that draws in that direction. Do for yourself, you deserve it, you owe it to yourself. All these excuses of wanting to pamper your physical body. Of all the ta'avot that exist in the world, does anybody have an idea which one is the most powerful one of all the desires? It's called mula, masari, felus, dinero. Depending on which language you speak. Kesef, right? Geld in Yiddish. Money. Why is money the most powerful one? Does anybody have any idea? Why is money more powerful than anything else? It's so powerful that the rabbis tell us of all the weaknesses that people have. You know where they fail the most statistically? When it comes to gezel. Rubam begezel, mi'ut be'arayot, v'kulam be'avak lashon hara. The rabbis tell us in the Gemara something incredible. They took a poll, statistics. Somehow they figured out that the majority of the world has a weakness when it comes to money. Gezel does not necessarily mean armed robbery, as the word means. Gezel could also mean not paying on time, pushing somebody off, trying to reduce the amount you owe somebody by telling him, I'm not happy with your job, which is just an excuse. I mean, using somebody's phone without asking for permission. I mean, Gezel has so many examples of taking that which does not belong to you. Money. Let's just call it money. People have the sweetness of money. Whether it comes to bribing them, it could work. They see money. It bribes. It somehow convinces somebody to change his mind, to change his opinion. The Torah says it, that it could even misguide those who are wise and learned and righteous. What is this? What is this to money? Anybody want to offer some suggestion? What's so special about money? Well, the easy explanation is because money is worshipped. Money is a master. If you have a lot of money, you feel you have control. You become the master. You've made this, therefore, your master. You've made this your God. Money has that ability, God forbid, to be considered a God, to be considered a power. The whole world runs on money. The more money you have, supposedly, the more control you have. And therefore, money demands a lot of attention or attracts a lot of attention. In the same way that a person can connect to something because of its physical state, in other words, his body demands it, his body wants it, and he connects to it, and he pursues it, the same way the neshama, on a spiritual level, is also able to pursue and to want, but something totally different than what the guf wants. In the same way that the physical body can connect with money, can connect with ta'avot, food and the like, because it wants it so much, the neshama, the soul of the individual, is capable of connecting, of bonding with something else that is spiritual just like itself. And when it does so, it does so selflessly without any anticipation of being rewarded for it. That's a very important idea that I just said. The neshama is so different than the guf that not only does it not desire the same things, it doesn't have any anticipation. Rabbis tell us when you do the mitzvah, if you want to do it perfectly, do it without anticipating a reward for it. That is really l'shem shamayim. That is for the sake of heaven. That is pure. That is completely from the neshama without having the guf, the body, involved in expecting a reward. It's actually childish to expect a reward, right? A child wants a prize for good behavior. A student wants to be rewarded. The neshama is not a child. The neshama is something spiritual. It's pure. And therefore, it does not really expect to be rewarded. It will obviously enjoy the spiritual reward that Hashem has in store for it, but it does not serve Hashem expecting it. When somebody's neshama is directing him, therefore, he's able to do things even on his own without being asked. He understands the need for it. He understands the importance of it. He sees how beautiful this person is and is willing to do for them without anticipating any reward, without expecting anything. It's purely spiritual. The neshama is doing it. Now, let's take the example of work, physical work, business. Not everybody is happy doing what they're doing these days, right? If they have a job. They're not necessarily happy with what they're doing. What happens when somebody is not happy with what they're doing? But they're doing it obviously because they need a job, they need to pay their bills. That particular job, that particular work becomes an ol, becomes a burden to them. They don't necessarily wake up every morning excited to go to work. So here is a need, a physical need for some reason to pay the bills. He's obviously involved in it. He's obviously doing his job, but is he happy about it? Not necessarily. So the physical body can very easily become disappointed, be unhappy, be really disconnected in some ways from the job that it's doing, because that job has become, in its eyes, an ol. He looks at it as a burden. That's the nature of the physical body. The connection of it to something, to an object or to a person, has an interest. And if that interest has dissipated, it's gone, that individual becomes a burden. That job becomes difficult. And that's what happens in life sometimes. People who have been connected in the beginning, in marriage, for example, eventually they drift. It falls apart. They were never connected for the real reasons. If it would be for the real reasons, they wouldn't drift so easily. It's easier to drift if the connection is not for the real reason. With the neshama, this limitation or this problem or this difficulty does not really exist, because the neshama does not do for itself. And therefore, when the neshama is involved in performing something, there's never such a thing as a burden. He doesn't look at it as a burden. This is normal. This is natural. Yes, I want to do this. That's the big difference between the neshama and the body. Let me give you an example so you should understand this a little bit better. There was once a servant who worked very, very hard for his boss. And at the end of the day, what is every employee thinking? What is every worker thinking? Oh, Baruch Hashem, he's looking at his watch. The time has come to go home. I'm going to go shower, going to go eat, going to go see my family. Comes along this boss at the end of the day, 8 to 5, so let's say 5 minutes to 5. I have one more big job for you. You got to go down the block, and there's 2 very heavy bags there. Each bag weighs 40 kilo. kilo. That's about, 90 pounds that you have to bring here. Could you imagine at the end of the day having to take these two heavy loads down the block, bring them all the way here by foot? What would you think this servant might think of his boss now? Or how may he react? What is he going to, how is he going to deal with this? Is he going to be happy about it? I don't think so. Most people would not be too happy. You know how I know that? Try calling an office in Israel at 5 to 5. They're already gone. They're not gone for the office. They're there, but they're not going to answer the phone. And I shouldn't only blame offices in Israel, but I think here too. Not everybody sitting at his desk wants to take the call right before. When I used to work at my work, I saw people getting ready. Women were doing their nails, and the men were cleaning up. Who wants to answer calls at 5 minutes to 5? They're getting ready to leave.
Same thing at 8 in the morning.
8 in the morning, they have to have their coffee. Yeah. It's not easy. It depends how you look at your job. That's the reality. But even if you like your job, to be given a surprise job at the last few minutes of the day, and it's not just a surprise, it's a heavy, comes along this guy and does it. That's his job. And he's sweating, and he's not unhappy. He's not cursing his boss. He's a good guy. Still, he's not happy. Comes to his boss, now what do you want me to do with this? Now I want you to take this to your home. This is for you. This is a gift for you. Is he going to be happy? He's going to be jumping and carrying no matter how heavy it is. As soon as he was told this is for him, everything changed. Did you notice a difference? When the physical body does something, it wants it for himself. And if he thinks or he feels like he's doing something for someone else, he's not necessarily happy. Not necessarily happy. He wants it for himself. Hashem, when he gave us the mitzvot, he reminds us, this is for you. At the end of the day, I don't need this. If you eat kosher or not, you think it matters to me, I get some benefit from it. It's all for you. So at the end of the day, at the end of our life, when we come upstairs and we see that all the mitzvot, what we got out of it, of course we will be happy. But that's the happiness we should have now when we perform the mitzvot, if we had the right attitude, if we knew that this is for us. The physical body cannot think that way because he says it's working hard and not being rewarded on the spot. The Yetzer Hara says, I pay you cash. And Hashem is not paying you cash. Hashem promises he's going to give you the world to come. I give you pleasure now. So the physical body is not going to be so excited to do mitzvot for someone else, for this boss. But if it's the neshama who's in charge, if it's the neshama that is dictating what to do, if it's the neshama that's in control, it will be a pleasure, of course. Because even though it comes easy for me to do it to Hashem, in reality I'm also doing it for me. But it doesn't have that attitude when it begins to do the job because it's willing to do it regardless. He's not waiting, expecting something for itself. Therefore, it's not a burden for it. It's not hard. He loves this. It's natural to him. Now you will understand one of the advantages of getting married young. It is true, what they say, very, very true, that the younger you get married, at 18, 19, 20, yes, that young. The younger, the better. Why? Because the younger you are, if that's what's meant for you, obviously, we can't always make that decision. It's not always up to us. But assuming you had a choice, the younger the marriage occurs, the easier it is for the two individuals to get used to each other, to give to each other. There has not been enough time or years for the one or the other to become accustomed to a certain way of life, to a certain nature of taking everything for itself. It was a life that was not shared with anybody else. But imagine a life that was not shared with anybody else for over 35 years, for 38 years, for 40 years. Didn't share that life with anybody else. Didn't give to someone else. Didn't commit to someone else. Didn't truly love someone else. You know how hard it begins to be when they have to start doing that in their late 30s or 40s? It's hard. I have to now love someone else, give to someone else. I've been giving to myself all these years, and I've formed habits too all this time. My nature, which I was born with, has also developed and is now, I'm not going to tell you my age, but it's now so many years old, right? It's so many years old with that nature, whatever the nature is. And if it's raw and it's untreated, not by me, by people who are 60, 65. It's untreated for 60, 65 years, or whatever age they are. Imagine an untreated, raw nature. Untreated means the person didn't work on himself for many years. To begin working on his midot, on his nature, on his character now, it's possible, but it's harder. We have to be realistic. I mean, it is harder the older you are to make changes. To make changes in yourself is even harder than to move from one city to another, which is hard enough for some people. So therefore, we see that the physical body, again, we're talking about the physical body right now, is going to have a very, very hard time training itself to be what it's not. Training the physical body to be what it's not is hard. Unless, what happens? Unless the neshama is given the right of way. You take over. You be the boss. You show me the way. And there's a beautiful mashal that tells us that if you do that, the neshama would automatically do the right thing. There was once 2 neighbors. And one of the neighbors, let's call him Shimon. He just bought a cow. One day he wakes up in the morning and the cow's gone. So he goes looking for it, doesn't find it. He finally hears a moo from a distance. And he recognizes that moo as his cow. Somehow he was good at recognizing moos. Anyway, I thought all the moos are the same, but maybe there's different moos. And where does he find his cow? At his neighbor's barn. Let's call him Reuven. So he goes over to Reuven. Why did you steal my cow? Reuven says, I didn't steal your cow. This is my cow. You know what ranchers do today? They actually burn a sign into the skin of the animal, so there's something there. There's no ID. They don't carry an ID in the pocket. So the only way to tell is by looking at the leg or something, there's a sign. So anyway, there was no sign, so Reuven says, this is my cow. And Shimon says, this is my cow. What do you do? So they go to the rabbi. They agree to go to the rabbi. And the rabbi hears both sides. And how is the rabbi supposed to know whose cow it is? So the rabbi says, you know what? I have an idea. You don't know and I don't know. Let's ask the cow who she belongs to. Rabbi, how do you intend to do that? Oh, very easy. Just leave the cow to go on her own. Put her on the path leading to both of your barns, and let's see where she's going to enter. And wherever she enters, he is the owner of that cow. And sure enough, she went back to the original owner. Simple. So the rabbis tell us, you see, if we allow the neshama that is caged in the physical body, if we allow it, if we release it, we allow it to talk, to express itself, she will go back to doing what she's intended to do. She will go back to her real master. She will not be subservient to the body. She will not do what the body wants her to do. She will do what Hashem wants her to do. He is her real master, not the physical body. She's enslaved. She's caged. The neshama is caged in the physical body, and there's a constant struggle between the two during one's life. And here you have the captain of the ship, we, the human beings, having to decide between the two. Let go of the neshama for a moment, and you'll see where she will turn. By the way, that's what's supposed to happen on Shabbat, once a week, when we're not limited by the physical constraints of life. We're not working. We're not engaged, involved in the physical world. We're in Shabbat, which is a world in itself. Finally, the neshama has a chance to express itself, to talk, to feel, to experience a totally different world, as long as we don't do work on Shabbat. If you really experience Shabbat properly, you're allowing your neshama to leave that cage called the physical body, and you will be able to finally contemplate things differently. That doesn't happen, unfortunately. People don't do it properly. They don't, therefore, experience Shabbat 100%. Okay, so what happens, therefore, if nevertheless a couple got married in their later years? Is there any hope for it? There's going to be a struggle. There's ingrained habits that are difficult to break and change. What now? So the Baal HaTanya says like this. Baal HaTanya, who wrote, the first Rebbe of Lubavitch, who wrote the Sefer Tanya. The Pasuk says, Vayu lebasar echad. The Torah tells us for the husband and wife to become one. One entity, one flesh. How is that possible? So he says like this. Lema'aseh, in reality, all of the Jewish nation are brothers on the level of the neshama. We're all of the same neshama. On the level of the neshama, we're all brothers. We're all united. We're all one. What distinguishes us is the physical body. Everyone has his own body, which is different. This one is gray. This one is blonde. This one is black, short, tall. Different country, different language, right? What distinguishes us is only the physical body. But in reality, we're all of the same neshama. So the Baal HaTanya says, well, if the guf, if that physical body will be subservient to the neshama, if the neshama will be the master and not the body, then it's possible for them to really love each other, to care for each other, and to become one. It is possible for their love to be ahava nitzchit, an eternal love, because it's ahava shelo tluya bedavar. It's not dependent on anything. However, big however, if their guf is the master and the neshama is the slave caged in this physical body, the homer, the physical, is more important than the spiritual, then it will be an ahava tluya bedavar. It will be a love that is not 100% real, and therefore cannot be strong. And even though they may live together for 55 years, they will not necessarily be happy with each other, because their physical body is the one that's running the show. And if the physical body is running the show, we said before, it may not be happy. What happens after 35 years if the husband goes bald and gains 50 pounds? And if the woman all of a sudden has all these wrinkles on her face? This is all physical body. But if it was ahava shetluya bedavar, if their love was a physical kind of love, oh, I'd like to change her, or like to change him, if it was possible to just change, you know. What is this? What is this, a car? You just change your car and get a brand new car? No, obviously, but some people look at it that way, you know. Maybe it's time to change my car. Maybe it's time to change my wife, my husband, you know. It's, you know, it doesn't look good. He doesn't look good, she doesn't look good, or she doesn't behave right, or she's becoming too much of a nag, or he's becoming too much of a egocentric, thinking of himself. Yeah, this happens. Life takes a toll. Many things happen in life. Life has ups and downs. Life has many challenges. And those challenges sometimes break people apart. How do you expect a couple, sheyuchlu litmoded, that they will be able to contend properly with challenges that will not separate them, break them apart, unless their love between them is spiritual in nature, not physical? It cannot be tluya bedavar. It has to be pure. What's pure love? That's a very difficult question. Spoken about this in the past, and it's very hard to give you an answer in a nutshell of what it is. But it does have to do a little bit with liking a person for what they are, their midot, without paying any attention to their physical look. Now, I'm not telling you that the physical looks are not important. They're very important. You have to be comfortable. You have to be happy with that too. But primarily, the most important thing of the relationship is the personality, the character. That's why people can never be in love when they're dating. It's impossible. 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 Because for that pure love to form, it takes years. It could take 10, 15, 20 years. I'm not joking. I'm serious. Until you finally see, wow, how we complement each other, how the respect is there regardless of the difficulties, how one does not think of himself first, but is willing naturally to do for the other. The problem, of course, begins when one is okay in that way, with that approach and attitude, and the other one is not. That's really, really sad. But when the two more or less are on the same wavelength, same line, the communication are always good, they invest and nourish the relationship, and they continue to do so on a regular basis, the physical will not bother them eventually as much, even if it was not 100%. Because to begin with, it was not dependent on that. It was dependent on seeing the values, the midot, the personality, the focus of the marriage. Why am I getting married here? I'm getting married not because I want to be somebody, I want somebody to love me. I want somebody to treat me nice. No, that's good and important, but that's not the focus. The focus of a true marriage or a friendship is to become one, to do for each other, to be able to do something together for Hashem, to be able to grow together, and of course to have children. The focus of a marriage is not just to share a home and to eat together and to go for walks together. Those are good things. Those are byproducts of a good relationship. But the focus has to be, I'm willing to do something for someone else, even if I don't get anything back from them. How many people get married for this reason? Very, very few. That is why a lot of marriages end up either falling apart or one or the two of them being disappointed when they're not getting what they want to get out of it. Who asked you to think of it this way, to want to get something out of it? Had you not thought about it that way, had you gone into the relationship thinking, I really care for this person. I want what's best for them. I want to do for them. I want to bond with them because I think this person is special. Good. Then hopefully, even if challenges occur, it will not make too much of a dent in the relationship. But when a person is selfish, when a person wants something for himself out of this relationship, when a person is attracted to a girl because of her beauty, that's going to be a problem. That's what they call love at first sight. It could be passion, it could be infatuation. It's fake. It's not 100%. That individual could still be a decent person, but it will not stand the trial of time. Over the years, it will be very, very difficult. Unless the person is a sound person, a healthy person, healthy ashkafa, healthy outlook. There's one more exception. A person can start off being a little bit selfish, wanting something very nice, attractive. He started off like that, but he realizes that in order for him to succeed, he has to work on himself, on his midot. Then it does work. In other words, even though the couple started off liking each other physically, that is what made them decide. They were physically attracted, but Baruch Hashem, they have some sechel, and they realize, you know what? We better work on our midot, because if we don't work on our characters are so different that there's going to be a conflict. It's eventually going to blow up. So because they learn musar, they work on themselves, they're able to resolve any differences that may come about. That is possible. And that is, of course, the formula for any couple, even if they get along naturally, is to always work on themselves, so there should never be problems. So the key to a successful marriage is don't allow the physical to dictate. Don't put an emphasis on materialism. The greatest glue, the strongest glue to keeping a marriage intact is spiritual in nature. To do for the other, to care for the other, not anticipating any reward for it, thinking about what does Hashem want me to do here, what is right for my family. Could you imagine if a couple is sitting down right now and they have this major argument? This one wants this one, she wants this. And then they say, you know what? Let's forget about what we both want. Let's do what's best for the children. Oh, wow. They're finally thinking about what's best for the children. Yeah, the children don't want you to separate. The children don't want daddy and mommy to break up. Now, obviously, if they're having fights every day, they better break up because the kids are going to be messed up. Yes, sometimes it's better for them to just go their ways because their kids are suffering. Their kids are being abused. I'm talking about regular couples where they have their arguments here and there, where they have their differences. Don't you want to do it for the kids? Once you introduce the kids, now they're finally using common sense. Now they're no longer thinking, what's best for me? What's best for you? What's best for the kids? It's best for the kids for most of the time for the couple to stay together. But in order for somebody to think that, he can't be selfish. He can't be. But most people have some degree of selfishness, even though they don't want to admit it. That's because for most people, the guf is very, very powerful. The neshama is not in control. The guf is the one that's bossing the neshama and not the other way around. What do we see so far? That the greatest enemy of man is man himself. Man himself is his greatest enemy, not his friend, not his partner, not his wife, and not her husband. It's man himself, his midot, his yetzer hara. He's his greatest enemy. It's the troublemaker, the source of all trouble. And this war and this battle that one has with the yetzer is constant from the moment we wake up, every day of our life. Shlomo Melech therefore tells us, Ivelet Adam tesalef darko vel Hashem yizaf libo. Ivelet Adam, man's folly, his stupidity, misguides him. And then he has complaints to God. He should have complaints to himself. People like to blame everybody else for their troubles. It's your fault. It's your fault. It's your fault. What about yourself? Ivelet Adam tesalef darko vel Hashem yizaf libo. Hashem, why did you do this? You did it to yourself. You allowed your guf to be the master and the neshama to be the slave. And if you do that, you're always going to get into trouble because the body does not always know what's best for itself. It's selfish. It thinks of itself. Now, this particular battle of the yetzer hara becomes extra dangerous when one gets married because then it shifts to a higher gear. It shifts to a higher gear because now it's not yourself only. You have to contend with somebody else's yetzer. You see, it's two. Even though they tell you two heads are better than one, that's if they want to cooperate. That's if they want to cooperate, yes. But if they don't want to cooperate, two heads are worse than one. You're better off being by yourself. Otherwise, look at this. Now you have to do battle with her yetzer, with his yetzer. Issues all the time. Anyway, that's why it's so important always to work on one's midot. Working on one's character and one's nature is a lifetime job. It never stops. Every one of us has some weakness, something to work on. And the good thing about working on midot is that even if you're not completely in control of your anger, for example, even if you're not in complete control of some other weakness, but because you're focused on working on it, first of all, you'll admit it that you have it, because you're working on it, so you're aware of it, right? And second of all, the fact that you're working on it, there's a chance that you might succeed sometimes in keeping your mouth shut if somebody insults you. It's not easy, right, to keep your mouth shut if somebody insults you? Even if you're a good man, somebody's insulted, he takes it very, very hard, and he reacts. And when somebody is working on himself and his midot, his reaction might be better, because he may have a higher degree of control over himself. And in marriage, this is so important, because this is a person you're living with all the time. This is not somebody you're going to see once a week. Husband and wife are going to see each other just about every day, many hours of the day. So you know how many opportunities for trouble that could be? if the two are very different, different backgrounds, different natures. This one is more patient. This one doesn't have any patience. This one is temperamental. This one is aggressive. Yeah. But you weren't like that when I dated you. Well, this is my real self now. Yeah. I was only faking it then. Yes, they were faking it. That's what happens. That's what happens a lot when people are dating. They try to put up their best face possible. You can never know a person until you live with them, until you see them in all kinds of situations. It's hard. Then how do we decide? Well, that's a whole different lecture. If you want to know about marriage, you have to have bitachon Hashem that He will guide you. It's not easy to decide. Hopefully, hopefully you know what's supposed to happen. After a number of dates, it just fits in like a puzzle. It just makes sense. It sits well. It's comfortable. There's no major opposition. There's not something that really bothers you. And if it's mutual, then it's a done deal. That's the way it usually works, by the way. After 5 dates, 10 dates, maybe a couple, give or take, they both feel the same. It feels comfortable. It gets better. You look forward to going out with a person. These are all positive signs, right? There has to be some comfort with the person. If something very, very much bothers you about them, that's going to continue to bother you for the rest of your life. It's not going to go away so easily. But then, of course, there's the disguise. Some people put up a good disguise and people fall for it. How do you avoid not falling for a disguise? The Chachamim tell us, be careful. Don't look at money. Oh, she has tons of money. Don't look at her beauty. Don't look at his beauty. Be careful not to look at the things that will distract your attention from focusing on the real person. But he says, I love you. And in Hebrew, הוא אומר שהוא משוגע עליי. He's crazy about me. Well, maybe he's really crazy if he says he's crazy about you. Right? Maybe he is. It's impossible. Any article that you read about dating, whether it's a Jewish source or non-Jewish source, will tell you this is a red flag if somebody tells you how crazy they are about you when they're dating you. It's a red flag. Red flag. It's not just something to be wary of. It's something that tells you this. It's not possible. Somebody could like you, but if he tells you he's crazy about you or any similar word, it's a red flag. It's not possible. It can only be so after years of marriage, where the love, the pure love, the true love has grown and matured and settled, gotten used to each other. And I like him, even though I know all his flaws, I still like him. Wow, that's beautiful. That's true love. You like the person, even though you know their flaws. You accept them the way they are, 100%. I mean, you may have an issue with them. Don't be so lazy. Come on, get up already. That's okay. As long as you're willing to forgive, right? You can criticize here and there, but you can live with it, you can deal with it, and you still love the person. You still are willing to do for them. And you don't only expect them to do for you. And that's a problem when some people do expect that. And the other person says, no, I'm not doing it to you because you didn't do it to me. Or you didn't do it for me, or I'm not in the mood. That's not true love. That's selfishness. You don't think about the other person. It comes hard to you. Oh, I'm tired. You're not tired. If you really love somebody, you're not tired. If you really care about them, no. Anyway, this is a whole different topic, but the point is still the same. It depends who is in charge, the guf or the neshama. The neshama is the master and not the slave. Then things are a lot smoother. Anyway, just like it is in relationships, the same is true with Ahavat Hashem. Ahavat Hashem, ואהבת את השם אלוקיך בכל לבבך, בכל נפשך, בכל מאודיך. Is that asking a lot of somebody to love Hashem with all your heart, with all your money, all your possessions? It's not easy for a person to be able to actually arrive at that midah, at that position, in being able to connect to Hashem. He has to be able to basically say, as we say in Arabic, ala aini wala rasi. In other words, anything you want. En ba'aya, besimcha. And the Torah tells us this. The Torah doesn't say ala aini wala rasi. The Torah says do it besimcha. Do it out of love and out of happiness. Give a quick example. How many of you here have built your own sukkah? Did you ask for help from a goy? I hope not. How could you ask for help from a goy to build a sukkah for a Kadosh Baruch Hu? You see the difference? Your brother's okay. To do a mitzvah, you should want to do it with simcha, happy, with joy. Baruch Hashem, I have the opportunity. Every day in the morning we say, Shelo Asani Goy, thank Hashem that we have the opportunity to serve Him. Not all the Jews are happy to perform mitzvot. Oh, I got to do this now. I got to do this. I got to. They use the word I got to. That already tells you something. I got to do this for my wife. I got to? That's not a good attitude. There was once a rabbi that was seen buying a gift for his wife on one of his trips. And this rabbi had a wife that really did not treat him good. If he asks for choresh, if he asks for a certain kind of food, she made him the opposite. She made him pasta. If he asked for pasta, she made him blintzes. Something completely different, dafka. She was not good. And this other rabbi says, this rabbi buying his wife a gift. You're still buying her a gift? What does he say? Dayenu shemegadlot et banenu umatzilot otanu min hachet. Thank Hashem that at least she's able to raise my kids and spare me from sin. Do you understand what I meant by that? Spare me from sin. Right? At least I'm able to get by, right, with her, and she raises my children. At least, okay. She doesn't do all my wishes. She doesn't do everything I want to, but you can't have it. It's not perfect always. So this man, what do you do here? What did he do? What is the idea behind the gift? He didn't think of himself. That's basically the idea. He didn't think of what's going on in his life, what's happening to him. Saying, you know what? I'm going to be grateful and thankful, and I'm going to show her my appreciation in this way, regardless. That takes a lot of courage, but it's more than courage. It takes the proper ashkafa, the proper outlook in realizing that human beings are not perfect. Not every human being works on their midot, on their character. Not everybody wants to work on themselves. They're happy the way they are. You know what they say? Accept me the way I am. Take it or leave it. That's not nice. That's not nice. Of course, people have to accept each other the way they are. But that does not make you exempt or patur from working on yourself. Yes, of course, you try your best, but if you don't try at all, no, that would be a shame. Anyway, a person that does not work on himself is a slave. A person that works on himself can be a master. That is a major difference between who is the master and who's the slave. Who is working on himself and who's not. If you don't work on yourself, you are going to be a slave of your yetzer. You are going to be subservient to your physical body's needs. You may be selfish. You may be thinking about yourself more than about someone else. If you work on yourself, you will have better control over yourself. You may be able to refine your character, not change your character. We are what we are. Nobody can change completely, but you can take control of the reins of this animal and direct it through the neshama's wishes, not through the bodily wishes. So that's what it depends on. Who is the master and who's the slave, depending on who is in control, the neshama or the body. Now, when we say master, it's important to keep in mind that a master, when we use the word master, we're not saying a master over other people. A true master is one who is a master over himself. In marriages, what happens many times is that each one wants to have control. Each one thinks of himself as a master over the other. I own you. No, you don't. What do you mean you own me? Yeah. Do you know that in Hebrew there's two ways to call a husband? A Baal or Ish. Baali or Ishi. Which one sounds nicer? Ishi, my man, not my husband. Because Baal in Hebrew does not only mean husband, it means to be an owner. The man is not an owner of his wife. The wife is not an owner of her husband. They better not be. Ishi means that they have both connected. They're both intertwined. They've both become one. They treat each other equally and fairly. What is this like? This is like with the dream of Yosef. If those of you remember the dream of Yosef, the brothers asked Yosef, based on the dream you had, Hamaloch timloch alenu, Hamashol timshol banu, you think you're going to rule over us? You think you're going to govern us? Why do they use the two words, Maloch Timloch, will you be king, or will you be a ruler over us? Why just say king? Why ruler and king? What's the difference? A king you make, you decide, you vote for, you choose. A ruler, a dictator, you had no choice, you had no say in the matter. Isn't that right? That's the difference. You think you're going to force us? No way in the world. You think we're going to vote for you and want you to become king? No way in the world. That's what they were telling Yosef. It's not going to come from us, and don't think it's going to come from you. In marriage, it has to be that each one accepts the other as a prince, as a princess, as a master. Not that one dictates to the other. Not that one moshel. Each one should be a melech. Each one should be a melech in the eyes of the other. I want you. I want your opinion. I want your input. I want to treat you as an equal to me. Not that one is a boss or owns the other one. And same thing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We have to treat HaKadosh Baruch Hu as an Adon over us, as a master over us. We have no say in the matter, whatever Hashem wants. Hashem decides. That's the right attitude. When a person takes Hashem as his master, when he makes Hashem his master, he understands it very well, mitzvot become easy. Mitzvot come out of simcha. They're no longer burdened because he's my master and I do it willingly. I wanted him as a master, not that he became a boss over me. And that's because the neshama is doing that. Neshama is expressing that. How do you know a marriage is successful? After 20, 25, 30 years, they both feel the same about each other as they felt under the chuppah. They don't expect from each other. They do willingly for each other. These are signs, indicators of a successful marriage. Respect, and they're willing to do for them, for the other, each for each other, without anticipation, without expecting anything in return. That does not mean that one should do everything, the other one should do nothing. Then if one is a very good person in demonstrating self-sacrifice and the other one doesn't respond, doesn't reciprocate, then this person will be a little bit bitter. I'm doing so much for the other and he's not doing anything for me, or she's not doing anything. That's not good either. But at least that husband or that wife is lucky that the other man or her man or the wife is capable of looking away and giving them, he or she, the benefit of the doubt. I know deep down they care for me. They just are not as strong in initiating and being creative with ideas. Some people are very creative. They go out of the way to surprise their spouse with some beautiful thing, with a gift, with just something touching. Wow, they wrote a few beautiful lines. Some people are creative. They think of all sorts. Not everyone is creative. It does not mean that they don't love, they don't care. But you have to be careful, because if you don't do it and that other person is not strong enough, they will misinterpret that. They may misinterpret that to mean, oh, she doesn't care. He doesn't want me, or whatever. It leads to misunderstandings. And misunderstanding is a whole different parasha, a whole different chapter in human relationships. Many times human relationships suffer because of misunderstandings. People need to realize that you don't want to leave room for that. You have to be careful with allowing for misunderstandings to surface, because that can spoil a good relationship. Just to finish up, I want to share with you what the Kabbalah says about this struggle that we all have during our life between the Yetzer HaTov and the Yetzer Hara, the Neshama and the Guf. The Kabbalah says there's a term called Galut HaShechina. The Shechina goes into Galut. Just like we're in the diaspora, so is the Shechina in the diaspora. There's no Bet HaMikdash. It has no place. So it's in Galut. But not only is the Shechina in Galut, in our own physical body, the divine power that we have through our neshama can be in Galut if it's trapped in the klipot, in the impure shells of the tum'ah. And even though we're not necessarily talking about tum'ah in one's physical body, but if the neshama is trapped in the klipa, as the Kabbalah says, if you want to know the exact term, klipat noga, if the neshama is trapped in the shell of the physical desires, the physical wants of the body, then the neshama cannot express itself. It's in galut. The neshama is therefore no longer the master. The klipa is the master. The tumah is in control. And that's a shame when one has no control and therefore no desire to do what Hashem expects of him. And many, many years can go by being trapped. Until what? Until all of a sudden the individual wakes up somehow, everybody differently, and becomes a chozer b'tshuva. He does teshuvah, he repents, he changes his ways. What does chozara b'tshuva mean? He allows the neshama to come out of the klipa, to come out of that cage, to release itself from the tum'ah, from the klipa. And finally realize, hey, this is not my job in this world, to just go and enjoy myself. That's the physical body wants that. I have a mission here. Oh, I've lost 35 years of my life just pursuing all these vanities. Baruch Hashem that he woke up, and better late than never. People are doing the teshuvah these days. They're being released from the confines of the klipot, from the physical body. And they're finally realizing there's more to life than just the pleasures, than just what the body wants. And that's really the message of Chag Pesach, the message of the holiday of Pesach. The essence of Pesach is what? It's not just to remember what happened in the past. Of course, we remember what happened in the past. We speak about it in the Haggadah. We share it with our kids. We retell the miracles. We give our thanks to the Almighty. It's all of that too, but the essence of it, Hashem says, you know what? This is a wake-up call for you. This is the time for you to wake up. Do you want to be the master, or you want to continue to be the slave of Paro, the Paro of today, the Paro of every generation? You want to be the slave of the Yetzer Hara? That's the Paro. Paro is the Yetzer Hara. Do you want to serve him, or do you want to serve me? You need to make a decision. Pesach is therefore to awaken us to make a decision. Do we want to be masters of our fate? Do we want to be really in control? Or do we want to allow the Paro, the Yetzer Hara, the physical body, to take control? If we will serve Hashem, then we will be truly Bnei Chorin. You will find the term Bnei Chorin used in the Torah as opposed to the word Chofshi. Chofshi means to be liberated. We're not liberated. We have a lot of limitations in life, whether it's our mazal, whether it's the IRS. You can't do what you want. You can't be completely Chofshi. But you can be a Ben Chorin. You can be a free man. Ben Chorin is a term where you are free, that there's nothing else that is dictating what you should do. You're free to think as you wish. You're free to act as you wish. You may not be free to do anything you want. That's something else. But more importantly, you're free to be who you want to be. That's called Bnei Chorin. That can only happen when one does the will of Hashem, when one accepts Hashem as the master, when one allows the neshama to control him, then he's truly a Ben Chorin. What happens a lot in life is that people suffer from all kinds of things in life because they have fallen into the trap of vanities. They have fallen into the trap of a life without meaning. And when that happens, they struggle. Everything is difficult. Everything is a burden. And that leads to a lot of disillusionment, a lot of unhappy people these days, a lot of relationships breaking up. That's because they've fallen into this trap of vanities that leads to tension, that leads to a life without any purpose. And therefore, why live this kind of a life? People are very unhappy because of that. You have suicides because of that. Which leads us, of course, to the last point that many of you probably are very excited to hear about. What's happening now? Where are we headed? It looks like everybody's becoming poor. Yes, this is a whole topic in itself that we don't have the time to cover now, but the mashber kalkali, the economic collapse, is guided from above for a very important reason. According to the Kabbalah, Hashem sometimes uses poverty instead of taking one's physical life. Instead of physical suffering, if that's what's meant to be before Mashiach comes, which may still happen, Hashem replaces it with poverty. Aniyut is always a better form of kapara than physical suffering or death. But it's not just to be a kapara. When HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings poverty before Mashiach comes, as it has been said years before by our rabbis that this is what will happen, it is intended to do what? For those of you who are paying attention from the very beginning, to break our connection with that other master called money. He is not your master. He is not your boss. Don't let him lead you. Don't let him guide your life. People have been guided by money. 2 cars, 3 cars, a house there, a house here. Everything around money. Everything is money. Hashem is going to break up that idol, take away that money, release us from that bondage of being subservient, of worshiping that money, which is causing so many problems. The greatest obstacle in serving Hashem is this idol called money. It's the great, because it's a master in its own. It's powerful. Before Mashiach comes, Hashem wants to release us. Hashem wants us to turn to Him. How is He going to do that? A lot of people have done it on their own. Baruch Hashem, kol hakavod. I think they're very heroic. But not everybody is so heroic. Hashem has to therefore give them a little bit of a clap, as we say in Yiddish. He has to give them a little bit of a bang. And what's happening? What's going on? I have to get used to a lower standard of living now. I can't have my Lexus anymore, right? I can't have my private yacht anymore, right? All the CEOs are very unhappy these days. They don't have their own private jets anymore. They've had to give up all their bonuses lately.
Except for the IG.
You see what's happening? Hashem is breaking that idol, that Egel HaZahav, called Kesef. People who live their life properly, correctly, are not going to make the mistake of falling into the trap of Havalim, of vanities. They have learned that they need to take control. They have allowed the neshama to be the master and not the physical body. Therefore, their life will be a life more of contentment, not of so many disappointments, and not so much ups and downs and troubles, because they've allowed the neshama to direct them, to guide them in life. Very soon, B'ezrat Hashem, all of us will have the merit of seeing the Geulah, which means what? The redemption, meaning that not only will we go back home to Israel and build the Bet HaMikdash, redemption means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will redeem us, release us, take us out of this world that we've been so accustomed to living in, a world of sheker, of falsehood, of vanities. The Geulah, B'ezrat Hashem, therefore, will be removing us from all this tumah, from all these klipot. And when that happens, of course, all of us who are still around, B'ezrat Hashem, will be able to serve Hashem Shechem Echad. In other words, there will be unison. There will be full agreement. Sh'Hashem Echad, U'Shmo Echad. Chag Kasher V'Sameach.